Season 2 of Marvel Rivals is almost upon us, and with that, I finally get to make the second half of my Season 1 lore compilation video that I released before The Thing and the Human Torch were compiled. Quite a bit happened in the second season, or the second part of Season 1 of Marvel Rivals, and I think that the capper of this video, where I explain my theory of what's going to happen in Season 2, proves that this game is really just getting started. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you at the end of the video. Okay, so right off the bat, this is going to be a different kind of video, as you could probably tell from the title. When Marvel Rivals was coming out, and I heard that it would be an official Marvel Games game, I thought that it would probably be its best quality. Not necessarily because the MCU is the best thing ever, but more so because Disney loves to throw money at Marvel. And a company that has low expectations because, let's be honest, no one was expecting a banger of a game from Marvel Games and NetEase for all companies, mixed with a pretty close to unlimited budget. It kind of makes sense for Marvel Rivals to slap like it does, you know? But let's slip to the quote unquote other side for a second, because the MCU has not been having the best time post Endgame. Even huge fans are not as excited when these movies come out as they used to be. In their scramble to try and catch lightning in a bottle again, they've struggled to get out of their own damn way and are far overcomplicating things, even when their actors getting into various scandals aren't. There's also, understandably, an uptick in the criticism of the MCU, and while most of it I do feel is warranted, things like MCU movies having become their own self-fulfilling genre at this point, and the issues of sameness across what should be vastly different movies, but there are a couple of things that I don't agree with, and one of them is when we talk about dialogue in the MCU. Now, I know what your initial reaction probably is to that. Like, what are you talking about? How could you think that? Have you seen the last few movies? And the answer is yes. I rewatched Iron Man 2, the good one, and the first Captain America movie and the 2012 Avengers movie, and the cheesy dialogue has always been in the room, folks. This is not a new or sudden turn of events or takes. In the first Avengers movie, there are widely hailed scenes that everybody likes, and I'm sure you've seen them all over TikTok. The introduction of the Hulk, the argument in Banner's laboratory. There are tons of well-written scenes in the early MCU movies. But you know what else is in those movies? Lines like, "We need a plan of attack." I have a plan. Attack. Or, "That man is playing Galaga, he thought we wouldn't notice." Or, "There's only one God, ma'am, and he doesn't dress like that." There have always been unbelievably cheesy lines and incredibly corny moments in the MCU. It's not like they magically started appearing after Thanos got turned into a dust bunny. Another thing that I see a lot of people saying is that the MCU never has serious moments without them being undercut by some quirky joke. But in the first Avengers movie, Hulk is shot like a horror monster when he first appears and starts chasing Black Widow around the helicarrier. But when the plane shows up to fire at him, the plane goes, "Target acquired." And then Hulk turns around and they go, "Target angry, target angry." That is the type of dialogue that people would flame the MCU for writing nowadays, but it's always been there. And to be fair, there are people who have always thought the dialogue was too cheesy, but this many movies deep, it's obvious that the majority was once in the MCU's favor, and that's why the movies were so popular. So what changed? Listen, I'm not here to act like the movies are all the same and nothing's different, yada yada. They clearly are, right? Disney has further tangled what already seemed to be a pretty complicated upper management process that makes making one of these movies more difficult, draining, and confusing. But I think the real difference is something that has been said many times before. The MCU is getting too wrapped around itself. The MCU has become a genre unto itself, and that's not at all a good thing for the quality of these movies. The first Avenger movie benefits from the fact that it oscillates between being a spy movie and a horror flick and a stylish, quippy romp and a dramatic soldier war movie with all the shield stuff. And most importantly, across all of these subgenres, it's always a superhero film. We go from the superhero war story of S.H.I.E.L.D. to the superhero horror story of Hulk to these, you know what I mean? Like it maintains that feel of a comic book come to life. And comic books have a bunch of different genres. They're inspired by different things because it's a storytelling medium, not a genre unto itself. Superhero film is not a genre of movie. If your movie has a superhero in it, it's implicitly a superhero film. That does not change the genre of the movie. And that's a big problem with the MCU is they have essentially tried to make the concept of superheroes into its own genre, and that doesn't work. But how does this all connect with Marvel Rivals? Well, one thing that I've heard people say about Marvel Rivals is sometimes the dialogue between heroes is corny or cringy, or like certain heroes' voices and line delivery is grating or like, too lulz te random for them. And I'm always like, well, yeah, it's supposed to be. Squirrel Girl's supposed to be kind of cringe and cheesy and like campy as hell. She's supposed to be like that. Like that's how she's supposed to be written. It was supposed to be kind of cringe in the original Avengers movie as well. Comic books are campy. They're over the top. They're cheesy. These are stories that have existed since the 50s. Like, there's a certain level of cheesy corniness that is intrinsic to how a comic book functions. They've always been over the top. They've always been a little bit like, okay, what are we doing here? That has always been the feel of a comic book. And in fact, when comic books started to drift away from that, it was noticeable. And it's an era of comics that a lot of people make fun of now. When comics went super grimdark, you had years and years of people wishing that they would stop being so dramatic because people got tired of that cringy, cheesy Saturday morning feel. But that's what a comic book is. For example, any comic book nerd worth their salt that I know doesn't like when people try to make Superman grim and brooding. A lot of people hate the Zack Snyder take on Superman for that reason. Man of Steel was otherwise a pretty decent movie, but Superman being like so emo and goth is just not the feel of Superman. That's not the character. He's a beacon of hope for all of the people that he saves. He always stops the bad guy. He saves everyone because he's Superman. It's not a subversive character because superheroes were originally basically modern fairy tale characters. Now, obviously, those characters have evolved over the years, so you have to approach them differently. And I do think that there is meant to be a marriage between the original campiness and the more serious storytelling of the modern era. But that doesn't mean that you can fully detach yourself from the campiness. And I think the first Avengers does that kind of perfectly. And so does Marvel Rivals, for one big reason that the MCU has forgotten. They play it straight. They lean into the skid. That scene where they reveal the helicarrier for the first time and Rogers has to give Fury $10 because he's like, as a reference and a callback to something Fury said earlier, the focus on the dialogue, all of the moments of dramatic one-liners before jumping out of a plane. That's the type of shit that happens in comic books. That's how comic books are written and structured. And yes, it is a little cheesy. Yes, it is a little campy and it's a little fucking cringe, but it's supposed to be. That is part of what makes it a comic book. And just because that doesn't appeal to everybody does not mean that it's bad. And I think that Marvel Rivals excels in this. These are stories about a giant green rage monster and a frozen super soldier from World War II. The shit is gonna be a little bit ridiculous. You know what I mean? And I think part of the reason that Marvel Rivals excels in these things is because it's a video game. You can show how wacky and stretchy Mr. Fantastic is. You can have your extremely niche characters like Squirrel Girl or Jeff the Land Shark, and people are clamoring for Paste Pot Pete to be put in the game. A lot of motherfuckers don't even know who that is. You know what I mean? And I think of the reason that people are openly campaigning for these goofy little characters is because the game leans into it. Their openness for characters like that is apparent. The references and the dialogue that is so wonderfully cheesy to me means that they are embracing the lovely world and universe that the game takes place in. And those are the types of things that I really, really get excited about when it comes to this game, because to me, it shows a passion for comic books, not for the MCU, not for the Disney version of Marvel, but for the comic books that a lot of us read when we were younger and still read nowadays. And I think that having a passion that is that core to the identity of the game, I think it's a sign that the game will be around for a long time to come. But that's all that I had for you today. Thank you so much for listening. I know this is a little bit different. There's kind of no lore for me to really cover right now. We're mostly just waiting for the Friday video, which will be the new patch notes for when the Thing and the Human Torch get entered into the game, and we will get the second half of Season 1. If you like the video, like the video. And if you want to stay up to date, you can subscribe and join us on our hike to 500 subs. Thank you all so much for listening once again. And until the next time I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, tell someone you love that you love them, and be good people. So, the King of Wakanda already has his second lore chapter, but what happens in it? And what exactly is that red gem that sits in the middle of Black Panther? It's not a design we've seen anywhere but Marvel Rivals. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Riddler. Wrong universe, I know. And this is Marvel Rivals Season 1, The Blood of Kings. Our story begins in another night of the Eternal Night in the city of New York, more specifically in the borough of Manhattan. The King of Space Wakanda, T'Challa, is in communication with his sister Shuri as he is in New York to meet up with Dr. Reed Richards. Last we checked in on the Wakandan royalty, T'Challa was pondering on whether he should help literally everyone he's ever known or just chill in beer and Djali until the Bass thing is fixed. Shuri eventually convinced him that he should, but unfortunately, T'Challa can't convince her that Bast's corruption has not yet spread to him. We then find out that T'Challa is back on Earth to actually share some of the heart-shaped herb. My, growing quite generous, aren't we, King? For those of you who are unaware, when the heart-shaped herb is consumed specifically by Bast's chosen, Bast then grants that person the powers of the Black Panther. However, if you aren't one of Bast's super special babies, it's basically like a sensu bean from Dragon Ball Z. It obviously is very powerful, and as with most things from Wakanda, they are very careful to determine if those resources ever leave their borders. As such, T'Challa has signed up to personally deliver this shipment to Mr. Fantastic himself. He's doing this, by the way, because Shuri and Reed are theorizing that the heart-shaped herb might be synthesized into a cure for the vampirism that is currently plaguing New York. T'Challa uses the darkness of New York to his advantage, and as he clings to the shadows, he hears Bast, once a voice of advice and wisdom, is taunting and chiding him for how ineffective he is, both as a king and as the Black Panther. T'Challa is then descended upon by vampires and thralls, and while he is apt at taking them down, there is seemingly no end to them, and even then he notices that he is being herded away from the Baxter Building. But unfortunately, his situation is even worse than he thinks. He is not only being herded away from the Baxter building, but he is being herded toward Dracula. Black Panther tries to launch a counteroffensive, but Dracula is far beyond the power of any one man. He, in fact, compels T'Challa to not fight back as he attempts to suck his blood. When that fails, due to the vibranium suit, Dracula opts to instead pluck the shiny red gem out of the center of Black Panther's suit. It is a shard of chronovium that apparently spawned within the sacred realm of the Jolly. This has made the chronovium magically inclined, and this is where things get spicy. We don't know exactly how it has been changed by being spawned in the realm of the Jolly, but T'Challa does confirm that it is magical in some nature. I think based on what happens next in the story, it is easiest to say that the red gem is simply a conduit for magical power, more so than anything else. It makes it easier for T'Challa to receive more of Bast's blessing because of the realm it was spawned in. And thusly, it is a better container or conduit for magical energy than regular Chronovium would be. Bast is enraged when Dracula tries to enthrall the King of Wakanda. She releases a roar against the encompassing wave of red energy that has begun to spawn from the hand of Dracula and from the red gem that he holds. In a quick clash of energies, T'Challa falls to the ground and notes that he feels a deep, penetrating hunger in his core. Dracula muses that T'Challa's blood no longer has the alluring floral scent that it once carried, and then, much to his surprise, T'Challa stands up and slashes out at him, knocking away the shard of the blood chronovium. It is also at this point that T'Challa acknowledges the fact that he no longer hears the voice of or feels the connection to the Panther goddess Bast. T'Challa then escapes, leaving Dracula enraged, and even manages to do so with the blood chronovium in hand. He surmises that the crystal has likely been fused with Dracula's powerful magics in the moment that he had it. And I am going to go ahead and make the conjecture that that would mean he has also been suffused with the power of Dracula's curse. Because T'Challa is never bitten, his vibranium suit protects him from Dracula's fangs, and yet he is still showing clear signs of vampirism. So clearly, the traits of Dracula's magics and that deep penetrating curse that permeates through not only him, but his entire race of vampires seems to have at least partially transferred into the blood chronovium as Dracula was attempting to use it for whatever it is that he was going to use it for. And that's basically it. Damn, dude. This chapter is wild, right? One, I didn't think we would be getting this second chapter for any character so quickly. So to even see that this has been added, this is the only second lore chapter in the game, is Black Panther's. And yeah, that is pretty wild, dude. I gotta be honest. Chronovium taking on the properties of the magic that was used on it makes sense, of course, right? Because we've seen Hel do that, we've seen Loki do that, etc., etc. So it tracks that it's doing the same thing here. And on top of that, Dracula loses a major piece that he was actively looking for. This is basically Dracula's first L since he showed up in New York, and he is pissed. He goes from 0 to absolutely losing his cool essentially in an instant. T'Challa also doesn't seem to entirely be a good guy in any way, shape, or form. This also sort of rolls us back into what we've been seeing in the Moon Knight story, because Moon Knight specifically mentions a guy in Greenwich Village, I believe, is where he is. When Moon Knight is assembling the Eternal Knights, which we also did a video for, if you want to check that out, see what I'm talking about. He mentions that someone is bringing together a bunch of vampires, and it's not Dracula. There's some other guy that's also doing it. And I feel like it was already like kind of confirmed when we got the gallery card. Because that gallery card, as some of my very helpful commenters pointed out, there's a gallery card that includes a picture of a black man in this ornate white armor. And obviously it can't be Blade because Blade's currently captured, and also he doesn't have the cornrows. So it had to be somebody else, and someone called out that it looked more like T'Challa than anyone. And now we have that puzzle piece, right? So T'Challa has this encounter with Dracula, and despite not getting bitten, still manages to walk away, contracting at the very least a little bit of vampirism. So this is very interesting. It raises a couple of different questions because I know that my primary question, and Bast does allude to this a little bit, but my primary question is, why does Dracula want T'Challa? Like, why though? You know what I mean? Because he couldn't have been a part of the plan originally. Excuse me. Because Dracula couldn't have known that he would come back to Earth, right? So why is it that when Black Panther pulls up, Dracula's immediately like, ooh, yes, I want that. And he sends his thralls after him and then goes after him in person. Like, he doesn't just let his thralls track him down. He's like, no, I need to be here, and sort of does it of his own accord. Bast does say something about the vampires recognizing that T'Challa has the blood of kings within him. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, because I'm sure that there have been some comic pages at some point in time where they talk about the difference in blood potencies and how it can affect Dracula and Dracula's plans, but I am unfamiliar with those. So if anybody knows, be sure to drop me a comment down below, because I have no idea why he would particularly want T'Challa. It could also be just as simple as his blood smells good. Like, he smells appetizing. There's something about the heart-shaped herb that makes the blood of the Black Panthers particularly enticing to vampires. It could definitely be that simple. And I don't think that it could be for the Chronovium, because, like, he can get that somewhere else, right? Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, we don't really explicitly know of a source of Chronovium in New York in the same way that it's in Wakanda, because in Wakanda, we know that there's a concentration of Chronovium because it has fused into most of the vibranium. So maybe there's not Chronovium all over New York City, and Dracula notices that T'Challa has one and he just goes after it. I think it's very interesting. If you look on the new map, the Eternal Night City map, if you are on defense, which means you are trying to prevent Ratatasker from reaching Dracula, the spawn room of the last point, if you're in the very back where you have to walk past Dracula to get out, in the very back, there actually is a podium with blood Chronovium on it. And given that we don't really know the timeline of when this map takes place, obviously it has to be near the end of Dracula's reign, because if you get Ratatosker to the end of the point, you win, and Dracula is ostensibly slain. So assumedly, the red rotating orb of Chronovium that is on an altar in that spawn point is the blood Chronovium that he takes off of T'Challa? Question mark. It's blood Chronovium that he's gotten from somewhere, because it's Chronovium that is blood red, so that's got to be blood Chronovium. So he clearly can get it from somewhere else. But who knows? Maybe he wants T'Challa for a completely different reason that I have not mentioned whatsoever. Time will tell. Season 1.5 only just dropped, so I don't even have access to all the lore. So maybe it says it somewhere. Who knows? But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. We've got a couple more videos that are coming out probably very soon, because a lot of lore got dropped in this update. And soon we're going to talk about the other half of the Fantastic Four and where the fuck they've been and what they're doing. So if you like the video, be sure to drop a comment and leave us a subscribe. We're continuing that climb to 500. Thank you all so much for joining me. And until the next time I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, and be good people. It's clobbering time. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. Johnny and Ben are here. We finally have all of the Fantastic Four. But where have these two been lore-wise? And does Reed have a solution for all of New York being turned into vampires? Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Riddler. Wrong universe, I know. And welcome to Marvel Rivals Season 1, Solid as a Rock. So in this case, our story starts with Johnny Storm, who is talking about why he's sort of the perfect hero to be holding the line against the nigh infinite numbers of Dracula's horde. While vampires in the Marvel Universe don't out and out have a weakness to fire, they do burst into flames when under the sun. So clearly, it's not great for their physiology. Johnny, also much like his actual mechanics in the game, is very good at staying very far away from these vampires and essentially just toasting them before they get a chance. And even then, when he is walking around, it's very hard to bite into a guy that can instantly turn his body into superheated plasma. Makes it a little tricky to turn him into a vampire or to drink blood from him, both of which are the goals of these vampires, of course. In fact, he's smoking these fools with really no effort on his part, to the point where he makes it a actual point of his to blast these vampires sticking closest to Dracula's castle. And very purposefully, he's doing this to hopefully piss off Dracula, which is the most Human Torch thing that I have heard in weeks. He muses that Ben is also probably quite hard to bite into and is confident that New York superheroes would be the ones to save New York. Johnny is then forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. He can only count on one hand the number of superheroes that are even left. Obviously, there is his family, Ben Grimm, Susan Storm, and Reed Richards, that are making the hold against New York, as the Fantastic Four are known to do, but the number of their allies is slowly dwindling. Specifically, Johnny goes out of his way to mention not only Blade, but Moon Knight, Scarlet Witch, and Squirrel Girl, and of course, his good personal friend, Spider-Man. So, despite being pretty sure that the thing is just fine, he decides to double check and he goes to Benji with the number of people on board fighting against him. Johnny has a bit of a conflict of interest. These vampires are not just vampires, they're not completely mindless, blood sucking demons, but they are also the thralls of Dracula, the normal people of New York City that have been turned into these deeply hunger craving people. And he knows that there have been cases, in the case of several people in the Marvel Universe, that have mentally resisted the urge to feed. Because being a vampire doesn't implicitly make one a mindless being, it just fills them with an overflowing hunger that is very difficult for the average person to manage. So, feeling worried, as I mentioned earlier, he goes to go check on the thing, Ben Grimm. But on the way, Johnny is harassed by a giant stone vampire dinosaur. Don't ask. But is eventually saved by good old Ben Grimm, who had essentially the same idea that Johnny had and went to go check on his friend, which is adorable, and I love the Fantastic Four. Never break them up. I'm so glad that they're here and all together. It's great. The two go back and forth with the giant stone vampire dinosaur, but neither side is able to quite gain an upper hand until Spider-Man zips in. This creature has been making quite the tunnel and hole through a part of New York to come up from the underground from where it was, which does lead me to the question of how did Dracula get his hands on this thing? I have no idea whatsoever. He never sleeps. He's always doing something nefarious. But between the fireballs, living rocks, and spider webs, they manage to bind the creature down, and Johnny goes supernova. Now, being both undead and a rock monster, the heat doesn't do much to the creature, but the force sure does, sending the charred fragments of the stone thing down the mole hole that it came out of. Once again, don't ask why it's a mole hole. It's don't worry about it. Presumably, at this point in time, this is when the Human Torch and Spider Man start patrolling New York together, as we see in Spider Man's story. And Spidey is informed that Blade has made his way to New York shortly after Blade, Spider Man, and the Human Torch, quote unquote, fight Dracula, and Blade is captured. I believe that is the essential timeline of events. But then, also around the same time that that is happening, we jump back over to Ben Grimm. He's traveling through New York being harassed by the Yancey Street gang, despite the fact that he is trying to fix things in his old neighborhood. He saves a small child from being jumped by a vampire and knocks the Fenger's teeth out with one punch. Afterwards, he helps the child up and asks him to help the thing track down a friend of his. It is revealed that Ben is looking for T'Challa, and he's doing so assumedly sometime after T'Challa's second chapter. The boy doesn't know for sure, but what he does know is that there's new competition in town. Someone is gathering fangers in Washington Square Park, and it ain't Dracula. Ben hurries over and sees a bundle of vampires training in martial arts, doing the same training, in fact, that the Black Panther does in his combat. He knows that this is definitely not a coincidence and lets them finish up so he can follow wherever they go afterward. He kicks down the door to their hideout and tells them all to move, and before a fight breaks out, King T'Challa steps forward, clad in ornate, pure white armor with fearsome beasts, assumedly panthers, carved into each shoulders. Ben immediately knows that T'Challa is turned off of vibes alone because the thing has the sauce like that, and T'Challa, however, seems pretty calm. And this is for good reason. As I mentioned earlier, vampirism does not implicitly drive one mad in the Marvel Universe. A man with enough mental training, like King T'Challa, is just fine after a bit. One thing he cannot control through pure willpower, however, is the fact that the heart shaped herb seems to have been flushed from his blood and system. He does, however, have a heart shaped herb on him, but he was hoping to give it to Reed to serve a greater purpose than to save one person. Ben assures him that while he could theoretically save more people with that herb, there's no replacing the Black Panther, and with heroes already being in short supply in the city of New York, he thinks it would be a good idea to get his mojo back, as it were. T'Challa relents and agrees and consumes the herb. The change to his blood is almost immediate, and it rouses his former army to turn on him. Ben very smartly deduces that if these vampires can tell something is different from the smell of his blood alone, perhaps T'Challa's blood would be enough to synthesize a cure. After all, it is coursing with the power of the heart-shaped herb he was planning to use in the first place. As they fight off Black Panther's former army, Reed Richards shows up. He followed after Ben's location when he didn't return from his patrol. Reed is wielding a mini version of the time stream reintegration device, which is the device that he, Tony Stark, and Shuri have been working on to hopefully undo Doom's big oopsie I broke reality. We actually find out that the time stream reintegration device is what rebuilds the buildings in the most recent two maps. That is why it has to be either Herbie or Dracula's castle to be rebuilt like that. There's a good video that exists that explains that Loki is likely rebuilding the buildings in Yggdrasil, and that makes sense because he is probably using Chronovium, much like the time stream reintegration device is doing. In fact, the rewinding device not only turns T'Challa back into a vampire, but it turns the thralls back into their original forms. They are once more human. So it seems like this time stream integration device works, and it works pretty well. So have we found our Dracula solution? That is an interesting question. I don't really know. There's a claim to be made for sure that this device could so be the solution to, at the very least, the people of New York and turn them from thralls back into regular people. But the real question that follows that up is it on a personal scale? Because this device managed to reverse T'Challa back to what, a couple minutes ago before he re-ingested the heart-shaped herb. Can Reed just shoot him with the gun again and make him go back to before he was a vampire and he goes back? Like, how far back in the save states, like what's his oldest save? How far back can he go? Um this is also, as I mentioned, this is the device that we saw talked about earlier, and particularly it comes up in Cloak and Dagger's story, where they are bonded together due to the time stream entanglement, and the time stream reintegration device, I've got to find a smaller way to say those words, is actually successful in resetting them as well. So it seems to interact with a localized and or personalized field of time and rewinds it from best I can tell. So it takes someone's personal localization of time and resets it back to what it was at before its last major change, question mark. That's obviously, this is all speculation, but I'd like to also point out, give me my credit where it was due. In my video about Chronovium being everywhere, I mentioned that I think the reason we respawn is because everyone is laced with Chronovium. So when we are about to die, the Chronovium rewinds our personal time fields and respawns us in the spawn room. I said that. You can look at the date. It was before season 1.5, and it looks like, based on how the TRD works, that I was completely correct about that. So, if everyone is already laced with Chronovium, and that's the reason why they can fight each other, that is essentially confirmed at this point. Um, how how far can you take this then at that point? Could we rewind Dracula to before he was a vampire? Surely not, right? We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Good questions. But that is basically all that I have for you. Sorry, I got a little bit rambly there at the end. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked the video, like the video. Drop me a comment to share your thoughts on what's going on so far, or even how much you're liking the Thing in Human Torch. I've already bought the Human Torch skin. I think he's an absolute blast. Boy, does big damage. It's very, very fun, and so is the Thing. So thank you all so much for watching, and until the next time I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, tell someone you love that you love them, and be good people. Okay, so if you've been keeping up with my videos regarding the build up to Season 2, you would be aware, like I am, of one particular question that has been rattling around in my noggin since the trailers dropped. What exactly does Doom want from Krakoa? It took a second to get my head around it, and honestly, I think I got the answer from a place I definitely wasn't expecting. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm the Riddler, wrong universe, I know, and this is Marvel Rivals Season 1, The Doom Krakoa Theory. And yes, the title of this video does not mislead you, my dear viewers. This is going to be a theory video, and as such, much like with my Chronovium Compendium, I have to preface this with a little handful of disclaimers. With this being a theory video, the things that I'm saying here are speculation. Granted, it's speculation that I feel strongly is right based on the evidence within the game, but it is technically speculation nonetheless. Alright, with that out of the way, I feel it's best to start this with the ending events of Season 1 before we get to anything else. So, no matter how your ranked games have been going on this map, it is canonical that Herbie of the Fantastic Four manages to collect almost all of the pages of the vampiric verses that were scattered from the Darkhold and bring them to Avengers Tower. Instead of the enemy heroes, in-universe, Dracula's legion of vampiric New Yorkers, which is a horrifying thought, they're already rude enough, they are what stand in the way of the heroes that are trying to return the pages of the Darkhold. While this is happening, Dracula manages to capture not only the Asgardian squirrel god Ratatoskr, but also the Daywalker Blade, both of whom he brings back to his lair. Eventually, the heroes resolve not to use the Montese formula within the vampiric verses to deal with Dracula, and I think the reason is they actually have a better solution: Ratatoskr. For those who don't know, Ratatoskr has a horn that was carved from the wood of the Tree of Life Yggdrasil. To pierce someone with Ratatasker's horn is guaranteed death for that person, no matter what type of spells or enchantments, or in this case, curses, would normally keep them alive. In fact, it is potent enough that a well placed poke could guarantee the death of Dracula. So the heroes of New York, including but not limited to Spider Man, Moon Knight, Cloak and Dagger, and the Fantastic Four, as well, of course, as Squirrel Girl, raid Dracula's castle and free Ratatasker before escorting her squirreliness straight to Dracula for some good old fashioned revenge. Now, if you're into comic books, I bet this situation feels pretty familiar. The all powerful villain is inexplicably stopped by the perfect weapon to foil their plans. But honestly, this one is kind of on Dracula. At least, partially. See, the only reason Ratatasker was even in Central Park to be captured by Dracula is because Dracula summoned her there with a little bit of assistance. Now, while I wouldn't have done this, Dracula is well aware that Ratatasker was just about the only thing that could have stopped him at this point. He had the spell of Eternal Night cast over New York City and also had access to this brand new mystery material that he had never used before, but seemed to be working like gangbusters in Pure Blood Cronovium. Even still, bringing your own biggest weakness within striking distance of you is a classic comic book villain mess up. But I don't think it was entirely Dracula's fault. That little assistance I just mentioned when he summoned Ratatasker was none other than Victor Von Doom. This puts a wrinkle in things the size of Barovia. As he always does, Doom was playing both sides. He is the one who encouraged Dracula to enact this whole scheme in the first place. He provided Dracula with the Cronovium that he used to pause the moon. He suggested that Dracula upgrade said Cronovium to Pure Blood Cronovium in order to empower him even further. And then, once he did all of that, he also helped Dracula summon Ratatasker to Earth. In fact, Doom is the first one to bring up the vampiric verses in the Darkhold in the first place. Dracula didn't really see the need of it. He already had New York and could spread his vampirism the good old-fashioned way with all of the enthralled vampires that he brought with him to the Empire State. Dr. Doom set the entirety of Dracula's plan into motion, and his end goal was never the Darkhold. See, the Darkhold is immeasurably powerful. In fact, it's a little too powerful. As soon as the Darkhold is brought into the equation, look at what happens in Marvel Rivals. It's all anyone in the universe is focused on. Anyone except for Doom. From the very beginning, Doom has had his eyes set on the elemental accident that he caused, Cronovium, the cherry on top of the deal that brought Doom to Dracula's doorstep. He wanted the Darkhold pages, and in exchange, he would give Dracula New York, and as an extra little treat to the Vampire King, Doom would even be so kind as to teach him all about this new element, Cronovium. He even showed him how to supercharge it with Dracula's all-powerful, time-defying blood. But Doom never cared about the Darkhold. He knew as soon as the Darkhold came into play, it would draw the attention of not only Dracula, but also the heroes trying to stop it. And he was completely right. The heroes get split down the middle on what to do. They spend an undetermined amount of time arguing over whether they should use the Montesi formulas and what other dark magics could Dracula be trying to use with the Darkhold and this, that, and the third. Doctor Strange and Khonshu get into a fifth dimensional chess fight over the Darkhold. Both Dracula and the heroes are scrambling to put the book back together. Meanwhile, Doom just sits and waits to play both sides. I mentioned this at the beginning of season one. I was curious how Doom fit into all of this. In season zero, obviously, he kicks off the inciting incident and makes the world of Marvel Rivals as we know it. But then he kind of just chills. He shows up at the very beginning of season one, and then we never hear from him again all the way through the season. And I thought that was suspicious. Come to find out that the heroes and Dracula going after each other to collect the vampiric verses, that's what Dracula really wants. As they go at each other, the heroes eventually come out on top, only thanks to Dracula not knowing Doom was playing both sides. Doom, through his spies, helps the heroes collect the vampiric verses, which is the part of the Darkhold that Dracula really wants. So while, due to sheer numbers of his legion, he has a lot of the Darkhold, Dracula doesn't have the part that he wants the most. So the heroes and the heroes and Dracula go at each other, with the heroes eventually coming out on top. But in the midst of the fallout, Doom sneaks in and makes out like a bandit with the pure blood Chronovium, which is all he cared about in the first place. An absolute master stroke from Victor Vaughn. It's in fact such a well laid plan that even Doctor Doom is impressed by it. 2099 Doom, that is. See, we learn everything that I just brought up from Doctor Doom in 2099. He reveals it to us in an excerpt from the Book of Doom, one that is released at the very end of season one. I believe it is even canonically the very last gallery card that we get in season one. As I mentioned, even Doom 2099 has to give Doom 2024 his flowers. His plan was pulled off flawlessly. But Doom reveals that he is not the only Doom with a master plan that is going quite smoothly, and he ominously ends the gallery card by saying that he has a gala to attend. Obviously, with the announcement of season two and the things that we have seen, it's pretty clear what gala he's talking about. And that, my dear viewers, is where the theory crafting begins. Huh? Uh, do I mean to say that I've been talking for the past 9 minutes and 40 seconds and I haven't even gotten to the theory part yet? Well, yeah. All of what I just said is 100% confirmed by the game. There's no conjecture on my part. These are all things from the gallery cards. The theory part comes with the trailers and Doom's little jab about master plans at the end. If you haven't seen my video analysis and breakdown of the trailer, first off, go watch it, what the hell. Secondly, I asked the question of why is Doom talking to/with Loki, and what does he even want from Krakoa? And I think I've found the answer to both of those questions. Doom 2099 is talking to Loki, probably to put in motion some grandiose scheme that will unfold over the course of season 2. But as for what he's on Krakoa for, I think the answer lies in the name of the season 2 battle pass. The season 2 battle pass is called Flowers of Krakoa. And for those of you who know your comic history, that should immediately sound some warning bells. And for those of you who don't know, in Krakoa, mutants found a way to cheat death. A bit of a history lesson here. Krakoa spent most of its beginnings as a totally sovereign nation. It was for mutants only, no exceptions. But in an effort to connect with the world, primarily to extend the offer of Krakoa to the world's mutant population, Beast was tasked with engineering medicine from mind petals, a type of Krakoan flower. He formed the basis of Krakoan medicine, which functioned like gangbusters on mutant kind, but on humans it had an even more potent effect. as their DNA was simpler. Three miracle drugs were created by Krakoa: human drug L, which could extend the life of a human by 5 years; human drug I, which functions as a universal antibiotic; and human drug M, which could cure any disease of the mind, including dementia, Alzheimer's, etc., etc. These wonder medicines were available for sale to any nation in the world so long as they recognized Krakoa's nationhood and allowed their mutants free passage to Krakoa should they wish to come. And those were all side effects. Beast's initial research, which remember was intended to treat mutants themselves. Needless to say, Krakoan flowers are incredibly potent in capable hands. And I think that it's exactly what Doom wants off of Krakoa. This also clears up something else from the trailer. When the trailer came out, we weren't only shown mutants and Krakoa, the party was also crashed by Ultron. And when I saw that he and his bots entered via a Krakoan gate, I was very confused on how he possibly could have done that. The only times we have seen a Krakoan gate be tampered with was through powerful sorcery, which is not exactly Ultron's bag. He's very much a robot guy. He has technology to the nth degree, and anything technological is certainly within his grasp. But magic is not something that he's a master of. Unlike the Scarlet Witch, who we see in Wolverine's story alter the Krakoan gates to allow herself to go through them when Magic and Wolverine return to Krakoa, which leads to her reuniting with Magneto in Magneto's story. And I bet some of you are probably piecing together what I pieced together. And dude, I mean, I had a Jimmy Neutron brain blast when I saw this. Doom 2099 is doing the exact same thing that Doom 2024 did. He shows up on Krakoa because the Hellfire Gala invites non mutants, and Doom has always shown great respect to the sovereign nation as he is the leader of his own. It's totally within the realm of possibility that Magneto, or more likely Emma Frost, would extend an invite to Doom for that reason. While on Krakoa, he manipulates the Krakoan gate to allow Ultron through. An Ultron that he is almost certainly supplied with that Chronovium core that I pointed out when we saw the trailer preview, which is also probably why he was talking to Loki. It would require quite a strong bit of magic, which he would be able to lean on Loki for help with. And then in the ensuing chaos, he nips a Krakoan flower, one that is almost certainly laced with Chronovium, given how Storm's story went, and then he slips away to do whatever it is the Dooms are planning to do with these items that they are collecting. I really think that this theory is fucking airtight, brother. I think that I am hitting the nail on its head. It makes total sense. Doom is spends the whole time in that gallery card talking about, wow, Doom 2024. That was a really, really good idea. I think I'll take it. And he basically just replicates the exact same thing. I also wondered, I was like, of all the people that Doom talked to, it's weird that he didn't go talk to Loki, because Loki is like, he's like the king schemer, right? And he's so magically powerful and has access to so many things and can get access to so many things. It was strange to me that he wouldn't even like ask Loki if he could help him with some of this stuff. But Doom 2099, I bet you he has. Now, what does Doom owe Loki for helping him manipulate the Krakoan gates? Who knows? Loki is very interested in Chronovium. So interested that he's even, basically strip mining the life tree just to get more of its Chronovium sap. So, if that's the case, maybe Doom is offering him a steady stream of Chronovium and his research notes on how Chronovium work. It could be that simple, or perhaps it could be something that's more related to season 3 and how season 3 will work. Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? It remains to be seen. But yeah, like I said, man, I think I am on track. I think this is exactly what's going to happen in season 2, and the implications of Doom getting access to those things and the implication of Doom working with Ultron to some degree. I'm very interested to see where this is all going. But I think I have rambled for long enough. It's almost been 20 minutes straight of me just fucking yammering. So we'll wrap it up right there. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, leave me a comment down below to tell me your theories. Like, do you think I'm on point? Do you think I'm off base? How are you feeling about this? And are you excited for season 2? It comes out in 5 days at the day of recording this. And I personally cannot wait. This game is awesome. Thank you all so much for watching. And until the next time I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, tell someone you love that you love them, and be good people. And that, my friends, is basically it. That is everything that happens in season 1 of Marvel Rivals. So now you're all caught up and ready to go for when season 2 of the battle continues on April 11th. I, of course, am going to be making videos as quickly as I possibly can on all the new content that we get. And even though you've heard me say it quite a few times throughout the course of this video, if you like the video, please like the video, drop a comment down below to leave your thoughts, and subscribe. We're on our way to 500, and we've been making wonderful progress. I appreciate the support so dearly. But until the next time that I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, tell someone you love that you love them, and be Omni, my friends.